Today's sidebar starts with a note of gratitude.
So there's a media personality that I was recently made aware of, Ebony K. Williams, who made certain statements insinuating that a working class man was beneath her. After getting smacked around on social media, she came up with a response video that instantly reminded me of a song.
Why the you lying? Why you always lying?
So before I rushed to judgment, I wanted to review the interview she had with Iyanla Vanzant for myself, in order to get an idea of the woman who made the statement. So let me put my woman readers on, and let's dive into it.
Iyanla Vanzant, we are so blessed to have you here with us today on The Griot. I want to start, dear, with something that we share, which is that we are both attorneys by trade. You are a lawyer, you have a legal background. And as women in the law, Iyanla, do you believe that that legal lens, informs our perspective and the way we show up in the world as women?
First of all, what's up with this face? It's sort of a smirk with more emphasis on the right side of her face. Not like the typical face you make when you're genuinely smiling, like organically. No, this is the face you make when there's a bit of an ego or an attitude. You see, it's the little things, like pay attention, and a lot of the time people will tell you who they are without telling you who they are.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why I got out. Yeah, very masculine, very intellectual, almost stripped and robbed of humanity. It really shows the dichotomy between the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. And for me, it just didn't feed my soul. And so I had to get out.
I feel that, and I do feel that I might have heard on a date or two, Iyanla, that we are not in a courtroom, Ebony. You can put the gavel down, and I do.
So in other words, you're masculine, extraordinarily combative, and probably exhibiting an inability to participate in a civil exchange without viewing it as some sort of competition where you need to show how tough you are. Every bus driver's dream.
I do feel it can spill over into the way I show up in my womanhood, which is really the center of this conversation today, Iyanla. We want to discuss masculine energy, feminine energy. I do want to start with kind of a news framing, which is that women's rights across the country, especially black women's rights.
I'm lost. Can you tell me what are black women's rights as opposed to the rights of all women? Did they legislate rights specifically to a gender according to melanin or lack thereof? This one I'm not aware of, but let's see if she elaborates on which rights were legislated specifically for Keisha while omitting Becky from the equation.
They're under attack. Lots of laws are banning abortions. They are regulating what we can and cannot do with our bodies.
And there you have it. Her idea of black women's rights is the right to yank a baby. Now, for her to be a lawyer, as she so proudly let us all know, I would have thought that it goes without saying that just because the #1 baby yanking group just so happens to be black women, does not mean that Roe v. Wade was a black woman's right. But this type of phraseology, in my opinion, after assessing numerous conversations that have taken place between women, is an attempt at playing the sister girl card. Or in other words, since Iyanla is black, she should take the bait and view the matter as a racial issue and not a human rights issue. And this typically works with younger women, from what I've seen. But from the look on Iyanla Vanzant's face, she appears to be unimpressed. But let's see where this goes.
What do you think happens for black women when this type of siege is at play and we don't feel we have anyone to protect us?
Right. Well, the first thing I think we do is we go into anger. We go into anger without a clear ask. Doesn't make sense to be angry unless you got to ask. What is it that you're asking for? People can say anything in the world, but that doesn't mean that they get a right to do it. It doesn't mean that they get a right to affect you. But because so many of us are programmed and conditioned and educated to think like men, we respond like men. And when I mean men, I don't mean two-legged beasts.
Look at the face of this woman. This appears to be the face of a woman who is not pleased with that answer. Why aren't you taking the bait, Iyanla? You're not supposed to be flipping it back onto us, talking about our ways of acting masculine. No, take the sister girl bait. Oh, this is getting good.
I mean, in the masculine energy, and it becomes competitive, it becomes aggressive, it becomes againstness, and that's not who we are as women. It just isn't. And I think for Black women, particularly for us, the way that we've been programmed and conditioned and educated in the society to expect less, to accept less, to be angry and to complain, but to not really step into our authentic self, our authentic power as women.
You were doing fine, Iyanla, but I have to push back on that one. Black women were conditioned to expect less? This was too vague of a statement and needs to be clarified as to what exactly she's referring to when she says conditioned to expect less. I mean, from the evidence that is rife throughout the late Kevin Samuels content, the modern woman has been conditioned to expect more, and according to some, far more than what is considered to be reasonable expectations.
I'm supposed to settle for a regular type dude.
If you're average to cute looking, if you're below average health from a weight standpoint, and you have 2 children, overall, does that make you below average, average, or above average? Factor all those things in together.
Average.
So why should you get anything then why should you get above average? What do you mean settle for? You should get what you are.
I see millionaires with average women all the time.
They don't have big chest tattoos either, and 2 other kids. Man, I'm just saying. Okay, I want to. No. I mean, let's be honest. Why should an average woman say she's settling for an average man?
If he can't buy you a Birkin bag,
if he's not getting you a Birkin, if he's not paying for your bills, then throw that back to the streets, okay?
and everybody's a 10. And when you ask her what she brings to the table,
like,
what am I bringing to the table?
Yeah.
I showed up to the table.
You showed up to the table.
Yeah, I showed up to the table. I graced your table with my presence. What do you mean?
and certainly the host doesn't show signs of expecting less.
And I know that you've said that you cannot teach a man or tell a man how to be a man. So I will not ask you to indict men in this question. But I do want you to speak, Iyanla, to how women need to, position ourselves so that we can be in our divinity, so we can have our crowns right, how we can create and not build, when some of us, quite frankly, feel that the men that are available to us, and I'm talking about across the color spectrum, across the age spectrum, trust me, I've done them all.
I'm just making sure you caught that. I'm sure every man is looking for that qualification on the resume of his bride-to-be. But I digress.
They are not positioned to protect nor provide because of some of the statistics we just talked about. They're not earning the incomes. They're not having the resources, and some of them are not even showing up in the leadership.
Would you date a bus driver? Would you date
if he owns the bus? If he owns
No.
it. If he owns the bus.
See, that's a problem. That's a problem.
And there you have it. This was the statement that caused the storm. But in reality, she has a right to her preference, just like everyone else has a right to theirs. The issue is, after having admitted to doing them all, I don't think that she realizes that the common factor in all of her relationship failures is staring right back at her in the mirror. And it's not my intention to beat up on her for having said what she said, although some people may find joy in that. The truth of the matter is, this is the result of having been brought up in a household where the value of a man was not established via the functional relationship between her own mother and father, and having not been raised with the masculine aspect that she probably craved when she was a child. She unwittingly compensates by becoming the very thing that she felt deprived of. For her, it will take a lot of healing and a lot of forgiveness and a lot of letting go before she can truly understand that her real power is in her feminine essence. Unless, of course, you prefer the usual outcome. After all, he's not just a driver. He's also an owner.
I'm rich, bitch!